So thank you everyone for coming. My name is Sarah White and I'm the Executive Director of Outdoors Empowered Network. And I would like to start by doing a land acknowledgement for both where OEN is located, where it's headquartered in San Francisco, and then also a broader one with our member Louise Benally, who is going to speak as well. So Outdoors Empowered Network is located on the unceded traditional lands of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, who have taken care of this land for generations and generations into the past. When we do a land acknowledgements, it's important to remember that the Ramaytush Ohlone were genocided by the mission system and the later California extermination processes here, and to devastating effect. And yet the culture still is emerging and working to bring rematriation to the land around us, and and we support those processes here locally and with our members nationally. So thank you for taking a moment here to think about the Ramaytush Ohlone. And then I'd like to pass it to Louise Benally, who will give a broader land acknowledgement.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome again here. I am sitting in the desert, the Arizona desert in northern Arizona, among the Dene, the Hopi, the Wallapai, the Havasupai, the Apache, the Zuni, the Akamas, in that region. We are here in the Southwest, and we have always been here and continue to be here as keepers of the land, of the ways of life here that was here originally before the coming of the different cultures, different ways. And we try to hold on to and practice what we were taught from the beginning, and what little traditions we have left. We try to carry those through in each day, every night, and to continue to exist with the land here, with the life way, and to try to honor this as much as we can, although things are changing to a big degree nowadays. We're waiting on winter. We haven't had winter yet. So I just want to say thank you and welcome.
And I'd like to now, thank you, Louise. I'd like to introduce Robert Medina, who is our chair of our board of directors.
Welcome, everyone. Hi there. As Sarah just mentioned, I'm Robert Medina, and I'm proud to serve as the board chair for OEN. I see a couple of my board member colleagues on the line. Glad to reconnect with them. I'm glad to see the rest of you in this space. As you all know, and you're familiar with OEN's work, the mission of the organization, if I could just boil it down to a quick phrase, is really about equitable access, right, to one of our most important community resources. And particularly, I'm proud to say that OEN really centers young people of color and communities of color who face generational barriers to getting to the outdoors. And I'm thrilled that OEN exists to break down and tackle those barriers in partnership with members all around the country, to give all of our kids and all of our communities the chance to have fun, enjoy, learn out in nature. So that's why I'm personally excited about the incredible work of OEN members from all over. I'd like to give a huge shout out to the members who are here, the members who are watching, and the members in our network who are doing such important work in our communities. And they're ultimately the heart of the organization and everything that we do. And lastly, I'd also like to thank our
Mhm.
sponsors, our very generous sponsors who provide the financial and in-kind support to make OEN possible, to allow OEN to exist in the first place. So again, thanks for being here. And now I'll pass the virtual mic back to Sarah.
Thank you so much. So I want to give everyone just a sense of the really exciting year that we've had. So really want to look at membership growth, member support. We did a strategic framework this year as well. And then we're going to hear from a lot of members today. And then I also want to give you a preview into the coming year. So with that, I'm going to get started. As many of you saw in the appeal that we sent out, we have this really growing membership. We have grown with 6 new members this year, a number of members last year. This is inside of being in a global pandemic. Everybody really, I think, embraced needing to get outside and the transformational impact that can have on young people. And I'm very pleased to also show the degree to which we've really been working on diversifying our network, both at the liaison level with for the folks who are managing the gear libraries, as well as at the leadership level. So many of our organizations are now run by people of color, and I'm very pleased that we are working with communities that represent the communities that are centering the Black and Brown youth that Rob just mentioned are really core to our mission and purpose. So with that, I want to give you just an overview of some of our new members. Our most recent member is Bueno para Todos Farm and Cooperative. It's in rural New Mexico, equidistant roughly between Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and Las Vegas. And they are in the process of building an in-place campsite, as well as supporting programs that come from surrounding cities. And they also have a future hope of being able to really support the community around them with camping. One of the barriers that we've found is when there's language access challenges. Not most of the campsite reservation sites in the Southwest don't translate to Spanish, as just an example. So we're really hoping Bueno para Todos Farm becomes this really incredible, beautiful haven for the community in rural New Mexico. We are also excited to welcome Maine Gear Share, which is working on a state level program to provide gear resourcing and training resources to all of the schools and outdoor educational programs in the state of Maine, and to really sort of through this cooperative support create just a unified resourcing. Grow Outdoor Access is in Idaho, based in Boise, and it's one of our newer initiatives, and we're really excited about the growth that they've had this year. In particular, one of the areas in Boise that they are working with is with a lot of the refugee resettlement communities. So we're really excited to look at how programming is unique to refugee communities and how to best provide the right kind of support there. The Mancos Gear Library is in southwestern Colorado, in a town surrounded by national parks, national forests, also reservations, and there's a lot of incredible natural areas around there, but also a lot of inequities. And so we're hoping that both the gear libraries, the gear library and the training program can really break down some of those barriers, including the sense of, even is it possible to feel welcome in the outdoors? Not when you haven't encountered outdoor recreation before, sometimes it's hard to even get started, and Mancos Gear Library is really committed to shifting that. We've been working with HBCUs outside, And they are excited about bringing gear library and outdoor recreation to many of the HBCUs starting in North Carolina. And this has been a really rich partnership for us this year. And finally, we have been working with the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Marcus.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Venture Outdoors. But I also manage the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition, which has been really a project and a brainchild of mine for the past 3 years. So Sarah, can you hop back one slide just for a second? I always like to start, I'm going to put this in the essence of an actual coalition meeting because I think that's extremely important. Whenever I'm in the space with partners in the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition, I try to start off with Black joy outside. So I just want to put a photo up to the right. As you can see, I was outside leading a hike with an after-school provider 2 weeks ago, and we had a lot of fun outside. So I just want to reiterate the fact that Black people, African Americans, we love outdoor recreation and a component that seems very soothing and suited for our neighborhoods. And this is a good example in a park space that is community activated and community led. I just wanted to start off by saying that bottom left is just on the river here in Pittsburgh. We can hop to the next slide. So I just want to paint a landscape of what Pittsburgh is and like why my role / career is important. So Pittsburgh as a landscape has a lot of pluses. So it's ranked 30th as the best city to live in America. We slowly start to trend down in a few areas. So 48 as the best city to raise a family in America. But as we continue to trend downwards, we're one of the least diverse cities in America. Currently, Pittsburgh has less than 15% population African American. The investments within some of our historic Black neighborhoods is actually moving the Black population outside of the city limits and Pittsburgh proper. So I would say there's been a lot of Black flight, primarily due to gentrification and a lot of the pricing outcomes that are forcing some of our community members out into other neighborhoods. Next slide. As a park space, and kind of my niche in the market is Pittsburgh has 236 parks, which is a lot. There's a lot of community park outlets, green spaces, city privatized land that classifies as parks. 92% of the population actually lives within a 10-minute walk to a park, which is extremely accessible. If you think of it from one lens, the national average is right around 55%. But there are some major discrepancies and disparities when it comes to neighborhoods of color. We have roughly 27% less park space than some of our white neighborhoods, and residents in low neighborhoods, which is specifically considered around park spaces, have 30% less space than the person of the city median and 40% less than some of our higher neighborhoods. So I like to think of access and some of the concerns around that just from a representation standpoint. A lot of the Black and brown communities that border park spaces, infrastructure-wise, we have a lot of dilapidated equipment. Infrastructure is also a large disparity when it comes to access. A lot of people think that just walking there is equitable, but when you're potentially in a wheelchair or you have other disparities that I would say us able-bodied individuals don't experience on a daily basis, the disparities are very large when it comes to getting to park spaces, and I like to hone in on that very intentionally. Access means a lot of different things when you come from a diverse background. Next slide. So due to that, the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition was established. So we really focus on three main things: bringing diversity, equity, and inclusion to outdoor spaces professionally and recreationally to make sure that the next generation can thrive in these spaces, either on their own or within hopefully the professional sense that we all are advocating on behalf of. So that comes in multiple different ways. We have a lot of different initiatives that we work towards, but we really try to make sure that organizations are well equipped to prepare for the future, that the global majority will be shifting to BIPOC individuals and making sure that we have spaces to thrive, but also making sure that community investment and the ideals and identities of communities are brought to the forefront when doing design of green spaces and community-led initiatives. Next slide. So our focus areas are really intentional. We focus on education and collaboration. Like I said, some of the toolkits, in-house things we focus on, but we're also venturing into the aspect of gear education, gear libraries, similar to why we're in the OEN network, but also focusing on structural changes. So making sure as we consider what community and recreation looks like within the city of Pittsburgh and specifically in Black neighborhoods, that the structures that border those surrounding neighborhoods change as well. So a good example would be when Seraph came down and visited Pittsburgh, there's a big difference with some park spaces in Black and brown neighborhoods compared to others. To speak more intentionally, passive and active parks is a thing in Pittsburgh. So passive means you can't have any events, gatherings, birthday parties, anything of that nature in these parks. And active means you can do whatever. You can have those birthday celebrations, you can grill and whatnot. The high majority of passive parks are in Black neighborhoods. So as you could imagine, informal and the idealization of recreation sometimes is being very backcountry focused, but growing up, my thoughts of recreation was my family going to a park and grilling and barbecuing, because historically, Black and brown people like to recreate around food. In the neighborhoods that are Black and brown, you can't do that here in Pittsburgh. So we're changing and advocating for structures around that to encourage people recreating in a more equitable fashion, but also tagging along and adding in the component of camping, backpacking, even foundational educational skill sets to make sure individuals can explore outdoor recreation in its full breadth. Last but not least, we also focus on exploring the industry. So we have a mentorship established where BIPOC individuals within the industry are matched with BIPOC individuals within the community. The young individual is paid $15 an hour. All of the structural barriers, so access, structure when it comes to scheduling, development opportunities, all of those things are covered and paid for. And we're really trying to share the cultural experience within the industry and hopefully encourage individuals to directly enter the workforce or go to post-secondary schooling or trade and hop on and enjoy what the industry has to hold and the future that they could create in it. So those are the focus areas that we have. Like I said, we're also joining in on the gear library aspect and making sure individuals can, one, camp in park spaces, but also have the opportunity to collectively, as Black and brown individuals, go to spaces and camp. So our community interest when it comes to the gear library is making sure that accessibility, recreation, gear education is top of mind. So as a coalition and the leaders within that space, we're not only getting more educated in how to lead and facilitate educational sessions, but also getting well equipped in gear access that I know the OEN network has. So again, changing the policies and the structures that are in place now with the active and passive parks and advocacy work in that realm, but also leaning on some of the partners in the space for educational curriculum. Within the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition and taking on a gear library, we have a lot of camaraderie and a lot of interest in propelling this over the finish line. But we've leaned on the OEN network a lot to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's, and the aspect of collaboration with city partners when it comes to MOUs, but also just structures that are in place, whether that be mobile gear libraries or brick and mortar that we could conceptualize here in the city. Last but not least, OE and the aspect of gear recommendations and brick and mortar recommendations has been a huge asset for us. And we've really appreciated that. Hopefully we can return the skill set that we have as a coalition when it comes to inclusionary reports, to advocacy efforts that we do here in Pittsburgh, to hopefully broaden the reach when it comes to how urbanized recreation is viewed. So I think that's my last slide. I think that's the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition in a nutshell, but I'm happy to talk offline if anyone has any additional questions or wants to speak with me separately. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Marcus. I really appreciate it. It's been so exciting this year to welcome new members like the Outdoor Inclusion Coalition into our network. We've also focused a lot on member support for current members. So a lot of work around technology and operations. This picture here is a picture of the e-commerce solution that we've been building for a number of our members for inventory management and lending. We've also distributed over $150,000 worth of gear, most of it donated in full. And we've started doing a little bit of grant support for select members. And this is an area that we want to grow. My favorite part of the OEN network is the community collaboration, some of what Marcus just spoke about. And then this year, I was just so happy to be able to make site visits to most of our members around the country. It was so great after a year and a half of pandemic to be able to see in action. I want to just talk briefly. This year, we also produced a strategic framework for the coming years with 4 main areas. It is online, so if you want to read into it with more depth, please go online. Our 4 main areas are DEI, membership growth, program development, and advancement and administration. And as everybody who's spoken so far has already discussed, this the DEI part of our mission is just, it informs all of our choices about programs, how we bring in new members. It just is really key to our work. So I want to just briefly take you through, especially this part of it. We've focused a lot, like I mentioned before, on increasing diversity. The representation really matters. And communities, with our name, Outdoors Empowered Network, communities speaking with what they need to support outdoor recreation is of course incredibly important around the country. We've really focused on actionable language, making sure that we are using clear language that has accountability. Around DEI, this is particularly important because if we don't have clear language, then we can just keep in the same process as before. We really are trying to make sure that we are always leaning into where the history and trauma is in the outdoors. Marcus already has talked some about that. One key area that we've discussed is even the word wilderness. The legal definition of wilderness in the Wilderness Act is areas that are untrammeled by man. And there's no part of the United States that is untrammeled. And to use language like that covers up the removal and genocide of indigenous folks. And it's just important to be clear, even in words that have inspired us potentially to be aware when we're using language that can create trauma or cover up trauma. And then it's all of our work. We're always trying to pay attention to what is the power with model rather than power over model. So making sure that all of our partnerships with our members are really reciprocal, and that we're not coming in to sort of provide a charity operation. We're really coming in as partners with different sets of skills that are all working together in a communal way and collaborative way. And then our goal is to always share this out with everyone as we learn new things. In terms of membership growth, you know, of course, we have Outdoors for All. All members have to be mission aligned. They have to have programmatic alignment. I want to just highlight this, you know, as I love talking about DEI in the outdoors, but if a program isn't interested in a gear library, they won't work for our network. They can be allies, but we have to have a gear library and skill training opportunities for an organization to work as a member. You know, and then members have to be willing to lean in to our community and really be collaborative, how, again, Marcus has already shared. And then an organization has to be ready. And I want to just point out here that, you know, there's a lot of ways to judge organizational readiness. And so we try and be very sensitive to what the community that has come to us needs for organizational readiness. So in some cases, it may be, you know, lots of sort of financial backing and sort of institutional support. And in other cases, it might be a community leader that is really clear that they're committed to this work. Program development, you know, again, we're always centering inclusion, access, and equity, providing support for our members the way that I described with the e-commerce platforms and the gear. You know, we create this professional community that is, I think, one of the best parts of OEN, seeing all of the members come together and collaborate. And so we're very committed to keeping that going. And then, you know, together we come up with new ways that the industry can grow. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be highlighting in a little bit later. And then finally, for advancement and administration, this is sort of the nuts and bolts. But again, it's important to be clear, we're member focused. We're not anything other than a gear library member focused organization. Our fundraising is mission aligned. Our marketing is advocacy driven. We apply these commitments into our hiring and our staffing and our workplace. And then our organizational leadership is that all of us are committed to doing this work ourselves, as well as in organizational settings. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Chris from Detroit Outdoors.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Jackson. I am coming to you today from Three Fires Confederacy / Potawatomi land, currently known as Detroit, Michigan. As everyone knows, the pandemic has, you know, kind of flipped this outdoor thing, you know, over and in ways that in some cases, some of us couldn't imagine. In Detroit, with outdoor programming, previously there was a lot of pushback until COVID. And now that COVID has become a thing, outdoor programming is being looked at in new ways. Park space is being looked at in new ways for, you know, engagement. So Detroit right now is almost like full of infinite potential. We have a lot of land, real estate is cheap. And again, a lot of interest in getting outdoors. Sarah, could you go to the next slide? So some of the programming, and I'm just going to go straight into what we've been able to do. Again, with this COVID reality, one of the things the city came to us at Detroit Outdoors with was a Winter in the Woods program. For those of you that may be familiar with Detroit Outdoors, or even those of you that are not, we're located on the front 9 of an old golf course. So we have this beautiful space, you know, on a main thoroughfare in the city of Detroit. So for Winter in the Woods, we did simple programming. We took fire pits and we placed them strategically around the grounds, some of them on former greens, some of them in cool little pockets, and just made these little secluded fire pits that people could go online and reserve. We provided coffee and tea, and you know, people came out and enjoyed themselves majorly. With it being a golf course, we were able to socially distance. People weren't, you know, stumbling on top of each other. While there, we also provided snowshoeing. starter or youth skis for cross-country skiing. And some of our member partners came out. You can see in one of the photos there, the Forest Service was there. She came out and did some junior ranger inductions. So yeah, great programming there starting in the winter. Sarah, could you go to the next slide? Another thing we were able to do with Detroit Outdoors, we have a train the leader model, or a train the trader in our CLIck training, our camping leadership immersion course. And then we have a gear library. So it's through the CLIck training and the gear library that we're trying to remove some of these barriers to access of people engaging with the outdoors. So with COVID, we weren't able to do that. So we looked at some other things we could do. So the family camping gear training giveaway was one of them. Usually with our train the leader model, that's in fact what we're doing. We're training leaders of organizations to go out. So we took that and applied it to families. And so we gave away camping gear to 6 families, show them how to, put it up, break it down, plan trips, issues in site selection and safety, the 10 essentials of camping and hiking, and then as well as additional safety concerns and trip planning. That is something else we're going to do again, but that was, again, another way to engage the public and motivate people to get out to the outdoors. Sarah, next slide. Nature Camp at the Den at Palmer Park. So Detroit Outdoors operates out of the Den, the Detroit Exploration and Nature Center. So if you keep seeing Den, that's our home. Again, prior to COVID, Parks and Rec wasn't super keen on outdoor programming. So now COVID being a reality and wanting to provide programming to the residents of the city, they reached out to us and said, could we do a nature camp? Of course we can do a nature camp. So with Detroit Parks and Rec and Detroit Outdoors, we did a nature camp this past summer, and we have a few pictures there. Sarah came out and saw our area. Again, it's in the city, but it's in an old growth forest. So that old growth forest is one of the oldest old growth forests in Michigan, at least in the Detroit area. So in the upper right corner, you have a tree that had fallen, and children were totally fascinated with that. Usually, on the block or in the neighborhoods, the city would cut that tree up pretty quick, and children wouldn't get a chance to kind of engage with a fallen tree. So we had a fallen tree, and it was there all summer, and children loved going over there safely, of course, with adult supervision, and just meandering through the space, as well as in the old growth forest, the top left there. A few of the students, just kind of meandering through the forest and enjoying some of the features in there. Next slide, please. All right, Wilderness Leadership Development. Detroit Outdoors has a partnership with the YMCA, and our Boys Outdoor Leadership, or Bold and Gold program, Boys Outdoor Leadership, Girls Outdoor Leadership program, is now in its 2nd year. This year, and that program is led by my colleague, Natalie Ramos. And so this year, she had 2 cohorts. She took one out to the Hoosier National Forest in Indiana, and the second cohort to Pitchard Rocks in the UP. And I wish I had access to all her cool pictures. I did not for this slideshow. Next one. So in an effort to continue with this wilderness leadership, not only with the Bold and Gold program, but we also this summer did a wilderness first aid program. We received a Knoll Scholarship. So the Knoll Scholarship made this possible, but we had 28 outdoor leaders of color from Detroit and Grand Rapids. And we participated in the 3-day wilderness first aid training at Camp Nisqually in Escola, Michigan. And so they got a few people there laying out around the grounds where they did mock scenarios of people in different wilderness first aid situations. All right, next slide, please.
That's what we want to do.
All right. With this one, so Black to the Land Coalition is one of our network partners. I'm also a member of Black to the Land. I'm serving as treasurer with Black to the Land. And I don't think I mentioned that with Detroit Outdoors, I'm the camping and conservation coordinator. But through our work with Black to the Land, Well, first, what is Black to the Land? Basically, it's a group of Black outdoor enthusiasts / environmental activists. We do family-based programming. We were doing pod-based programming before pods were quote unquote a thing. Um, and so through the work here, some of the events that Black to the Land has been able to do with the support of Detroit Outdoors, our forest school for children 10 and under. So we're visiting parks in the area, metro parks, city parks, we're doing trails, foraging, tree species identification, animal identification, track identification, all of which is kind of depicted in these pictures. One of our culminating things from the summer was a trip that was made possible with funding through the U.S. Forest Service. We took a group of families, teens, young adults up to Clear Lake Education Center, located in Hiawatha National Forest and Pictured Rocks. Up there, it was an indigenous / Black solidarity retreat. So some of the programming consisted of spruce root harvesting, birch bark harvesting, birch basket making, and talks around the fire at night with indigenous tribal members. That is another thing we're going to be doing in the upcoming year. And it was a great event for the youth that have participated because, again, with COVID, a lot of these youth had been doing virtual school and hadn't had opportunities to do any in-person programming. So the strange thing with that group of teens, when they got together, they didn't know each other. And they were pretty quiet, but over the course of those days, they could communicate just with looks. So great bonding. We got back to Detroit. Those youth stayed in touch. Met, did some movies, went to the African World Fest, which is an ethnic festival here in Detroit. So that group of youth basically has created an entire new friendship based on the experience they had there at Clear Lake. Next slide, please. 22 and beyond. During this past year, Detroit Outdoors, our model, again, train the trainer or an indirect service model. We were forced to do some more direct servicing, more hands-on stuff. Again, like Nature Camp and the Bolden program were examples more of that direct service. So as we move forward, the YMCA of Metro Detroit has been granted an award to hire additional Bolden Gold staff. So we're going to be adding staff to our Bolden program / Detroit Outdoors Collective. Other opportunities growing from longstanding partnerships include single-day nature-based programming through Detroit Parks and Rec, down at the Detroit International Wildlife Refuge. And both of them are supporting overnight camping and other areas other than Scout Hollow. Scout Hollow is the campground that we got recommissioned where a lot of our, or really most of our programming went out of as far as camping. So now there's a need or people are seeing the need to identify some other areas because Scout Hollow, it sits in a floodplain of the Rouge River. And we've had some record water levels here in Detroit. So much of this summer, Scout Hollow was flooded. And another thing that we've been able to add to the den this past season was Dr. Ram, Wayne State School of Medicine Research Laboratory. We now have a partial research laboratory in the den. So that too is increasing, possibilities for engagement, more STEM activities with youth. And then the last thing, just looking at mutually reinforcing more of these community relationships, organizational relationships, local and national with our network partners. And I believe that is the last slide in the Detroit Outdoors 2001.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate hearing all of that.
Welcome, Sarah.
And this picture up top here is from some of the fish and wildlife areas that I got to see while I was in Detroit. So,
oh, yeah.
Yep. So briefly looking forward to 2022, we're going to continue to grow, continue to provide technical support, gear support, But we also have this leading question of how does the gear library model create and support an inclusive and decolonized outdoor recreation culture? And so how we are really going to approach that this year is we have a new training guide working group. So as our members have mentioned so far, we have this train the trainer model is a common model for many of our members. And so we train youth facing workers, school teachers, after school program folks, family members, how to work with kids outside. These are just a few examples of our trainings. But training programs, in addition to creating teaching skills, pass on cultural norms of outdoor recreations. And in some cases, those cultural norms are completely fantastic. And in some cases, those are more harmful. And so our question is, how do we collectively do the work of interrupting the harmful practices that are rooted in white supremacy and colonization while protecting the intrinsic benefits of being outdoors and and really allowing the space for all children to have the best possible experience in the outdoors. So we're going to be using this framework. I've talked with a number of our members about, again, you can't take kids outside if you don't have the gear and if you don't have some of the basic skills. But then once you have those pieces in place, which I'm so pleased with all of our members who've done so much work to get those pieces in place, you have to really look at the safety and inclusion pieces of it. So we're going to be looking at all of our training guides to look at how does it address generational trauma? How does it address real and perceived lack of safety? And the perceived lack of safety, if it makes it so that you don't leave your house, that is a barrier to the outdoors. Again, power with versus power over. So much of the language in traditional outdoor recreation is very sort of conquer oriented, which has ramifications for folks of all types. And so we want to just make sure that we're not, again, passing that on to the next generation. And then from an inclusion piece, like how are we really looking at what is culturally relevant for the communities that are providing training for their communities? So this is everything from language and food and appropriate clothing, making sure we're understanding and incorporating the cultural values of nature and the outdoors that's appropriate for each particular community and culture. And that we're really looking at other ways that the outdoors, in addition to the backpacking and camping, can be met and experienced. So that's everything from community gatherings, the barbecues and cookouts in a local park, celebrating local cultural milestones in the outdoors, and other group experiences like that. So this is the framework that we're working with. I hope at the end of 2022 to have a lot of really exciting processes and updates to share about this. So I'm happy to talk at any point with anyone who's interested in learning more, and support your local members to do this work as well. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Louise, who runs Indigenous Cultural Concepts in Arizona.
Hello, we're Indigenous Cultural Concepts, and we are a res-based group. And so with COVID in our neighborhood full time, it's been really a challenge for us to do a lot of activities. So we have a small number of our work group, which are a lot of times kids under 15 years and younger, all the way down to 6-year-old. And we're reverse compared to whoever has presented, because we're out in the rural area setting. We don't have a city zone or a recreation center or the Forest Service is not there to give us a go ahead. So we have to do everything based on our culture, which is outdoors. So um, we go through this program where our children are taught the very basics of camping, starting with the teaching of what we call the Hogan. And in that teaching, um, we have a process. So we work with the four directions because we're an indigenous group. So based on our teaching is how I run the program. To the east represents the dawn of life. So and that is the planning. To the south is the actual doing of that planning. Oh no, let me backtrack a little bit. The thinking to the east, you think of whatever that is that you're going to do, the goals that you have. So to the south is planning, to the west is actually doing, and then to the north is the finishing. So we use that model. It's called the Hogan model. And so through that, the girls, the women have a different role in life. So we teach that, and in our program, we incorporate, like the basics, starting with water. Water education, we implement to the age of 3 to 6. And in that age group, they learn about the life and the meaning of water and how it's a big necessity. And so then the next phase of that, boys and girls have different teaching, like I said, in our culture. So I teach the program based on that. To the south is the air. So we do these four direction teaching. To the air is a lot of times just the things that you'll be doing after you turn 8 years old. And there's a different expectation in your learning. So a lot of that is outside. And then to the west is the earth. Again, that's when the age group goes up to 12. So then they're actually doing the learning of, the foraging of the wild foods, the harvesting of the wild animals, and the processing of those foods, and different things, the medicinal stuff. So then after 14, 15, 16, then it's to the north, and that's the atmospheric learning, and there it's broader, and that's when they become a older person. So we have a setting of role, responsibility, and the doings are more kind of geared towards becoming an adult and teaching them the different ways. So in all this, like I was saying from the start, it's backwards. Like you have a resource center where your learners go. And from there, you kind of do the different programs. For us, it's not recreation, it's survival. So everything that we do, that we teach, is all based on survival for the future. So we implement that, and hopefully, in hoping that by the time they're 17, 18, they'll know what they're expected and what they should know and what they should already know how to do. So that's the kind of teaching that we do through indigenous cultural concepts. And we do integrate a lot of the art because in our survival, everything from the pre-colonial days is like you make those things. So we try to emphasize that as much as possible although in today's time things are different. A lot of things are already made and already processed. And what we've learned through times is that a lot of times when things are already made, then it changes the the future generation to where they assume it's already made. So then the motivation to accomplish things gets lower and lower. So for this reason, our program is designed to kind of bring back that making them do it, making them learn how to do it, and teaching them how to to utilize the resources from nature and not depend so much on something that they will get from a store somewhere. Out in my community up Big Mountain, the nearest town is 136 miles away. Either way you go. So, if you want to have an easy life, then, which is through Western education, that's what we see is like, I mean, it's good, it's, you know, worthwhile. But on the other hand, when you're looking at that from a traditional lens, then these kids forget who they really are and how to live and how to be in balance with nature. So our goal is to kind of reverse that. And over the past 6 years, there's been so many younger people that have been migrating back and wanting to learn, wanting to know how to do a lot of the things. So I've been very busy with that. Before the pandemic started, we were actually doing a lot of activities with college graduate students that want to relearn a lot of their traditional knowledge and skill building. So now, because of this COVID thing, we're not able to do a lot of those activities. However, we do have an ongoing project here where we don't have electricity in our communities. A lot of our communities don't have running water. So we encourage the younger generation to go out and get firewood and bring it to homes where, family need warmth. So from those firewood, we're able to stay warm and we're also able to use the wood to make food. So that's where we're at on in my community. We're still in the 1700s, believe it or not. So we don't have electricity. And so now, before it was kerosene lamps. So now there's solar. So we encourage people to, invest in solar lamps, solar, lighting, so that they can depend back on the sun. So that's kind of like where we're at. And right now we're doing a lot of harvesting of the wild foods and also the wild medicine. We've been making tons and tons of um, traditional herbal medicine to combat COVID. So we make those, we pass them out, and we instruct, whoever needs to know how much amount to take and what to do. And so I also uh, do steam treatment. So I show that to people how to do that. And it's been working good. And we have some support, from different parts of the country that are sending in different products like wipes, gloves, and masks and stuff like that. So we're fortunate to have people out there in the country that are able to come across with these things. And the
Mm.
other thing is we've been getting a lot of island people to support us also from Hawaii. They're sending us herbs, that are antiviral. And so when it comes here, we integrate that with the local antiviral stuff, mix it in, make that potion and pass it out. So that's kind of like the kind of work that Indigenous Cultural Concept does. We do things from the Indigenous cultural perspective. That's what it means.
Thank you, Louise.
Mhm.
So I just want to say, first of all, to what you just said, for all of our members, including Indigenous Cultural Concepts, if you want to provide direct support to our members, please do that. Supporting OEN is also, of course, fabulous. But I really appreciate all of the care and work, Louise, that you just described, and the really bringing the Indigenous ways and the traditional ways to the youth. So with that, we're coming to the hour right now. Before we leave, I want to give a shout out. Kyle McDonald, our founder, is on the call. So just want to say a brief thank you to Kyle. Thank you so much for continuing to be passionate about our programs. And then thank you to our members, especially to Marcus and Chris and Louise for coming here today. And I just want to open it up for a minute or two if anybody has any questions about anything that they've heard.
For Louise, you were speaking of some of the herbs and things you were brewing out there. Are you making that available to anyone that is not on the res or in other communities?
It can be if they sent us their info.
Okay, okay. I'll be reaching out to you.
Mm-hmm.
I've been practicing natural healing for over 32 years, so
All
yes.
right.
Thank you for your work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Louise. And any other questions before we go? I really appreciate everyone joining today and the time that our members spent, and I hope that we just continue to grow and deepen our work to create these good practices that are supportive to members where they are, whether rural, whether on reservations, whether in big cities. Each member brings a lot of really incredible, unique perspectives. But together we are able to continue to grow how outdoor education and outdoor recreation can be really support everyone. So thank you for your time, and I'm gonna thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.